Hello and welcome to another edition of Coffee Talk with immigration attorney Brian D. Lerner. In this particular video, we're talking about E-2 investor visas. Now, I've done several visas on the individual parts of the E-2, but I'd like to give a generalized overview of what the E-2 visa is, how it can help, what it's used for, and basically who qualifies. So the E-2 investor visa many times is confused with the EB-5 investor visa. Now, just to give you an idea, the EB-5 is for the green card, and you have to have $1 million to invest in a business, and then there's all kinds of other requirements, and there are some exceptions to where you only need 500,000. But generally speaking, the average person, when you say 1,000,000, 500,000, is just way out of the ballpark, and it's not going to work. Well, the E-2 is the non-immigrant investor visa. What this means is that you don't get the green card, but you can basically invest in your own business, come to the United States, work in your own business, be an entrepreneur, and apply at some later point for the green card, whether it be through the EB-5 or whether it be through PERM or a family-based petition. In fact, many people, while waiting years and years and years for the visa number to become current, they can actually come here on the E-2, work their own business, and be here for all these years while they're waiting. And then, when the visa number becomes current, then they can go and adjust to permanent residency. So it's a great technique, a great visa for the typical entrepreneur. Now, here's the deal with this. Now, the amount that needs to be invested is normally about 50 to 100,000 US dollars. Okay, now there's no set minimum. So when people say, well, how much exactly do I have to invest in order to get an E-2? Again, the typical answer I give is between 50 and 100,000 US dollars. The more you can invest, the better it will be and the easier it will be to get approved. Now, it doesn't mean you can't get an E-2 approved for less money. I in fact did one many years ago for only 24,000 investment, but it was a bear to get through, and they issued all kinds of requests for evidence and other issues. So let's just keep as a ballpark figure the 100,000, which is much less than $1 million and is much more doable. Now, so that deals with the investment part. Now, what about qualification? How do you know if you even qualify for an E-2? Well, the fact is you have to come from a country that has a treaty with the United States to allow you to come in on an E-2. So for example, if you come from the Philippines, there's a treaty with the Philippines, Canada, Mexico, Korea, Japan. There's countries all over the world. Believe it or not, there's even one from Iran. So there's countries from all over the world that have treaties with the United States that allow them to come here on an E-2. Now let's say you're from China. China doesn't qualify. There's no treaty with China for an E-2. But if you happen to be in Taiwan, there is a treaty. So if you're a Taiwanese citizen, come on over on an E-2. If you're a Chinese citizen, well, you're going to need to find another way. So before you go off thinking that all you have to do is invest 50 to 100,000 US and you'll be able to come here on an E-2, first you want to make sure you are actually from an E-2 country. Now, assuming that you get past that hurdle and you are from an E-2 country, then the question is, what type of business can you invest in? Well, the E-2 is wide open, okay? And by that, I mean the United States likes when people come here on E-2s. It's not like, in many countries, the visitor visa where you get denied left and right because they don't believe you'll come back to your home country. With the E-2, they know it generates money, it generates business. It's a good idea to allow more E-2 people to come in. Given that, it's not easy to prepare the petition, but still yet it is a great way to start your business. So you can come here and you can start a consulting firm, you can do a construction business, you could buy a little restaurant, you could buy a franchise. The idea though is that you have to own 51% of whatever it is that you're buying. So if you're going to go, basically half-half with, your U.S. citizen friend, instead of 50-50, just make it 51-49. While theoretically, it is possible to get an E-2 with 50-50. There's issues of management and control and other issues that pop up. So let's just make it easier and make sure you take 51%. So sometimes people come and they say, well, what if I want to do this but later expand to that? That's fine. When my firm does the preparation for the E-2, we have to make sure that we show a 5-year business plan of all these charts and numbers and figures and everything showing how the company is going to succeed, where it's going to go to, and basically upward lines of everything. So the fact that the business is going to expand is great. You come here, for example, let's say you start as an engineering consultant, but you also like to sell curios from England. Okay, you could literally be an engineering consultant on one part of the business and have a little store that sells curios and artifacts from England on the other side of the business. And when I say it's wide open, I really mean that. So, because I've actually done similar types of E2s. So that's how you would go forward in that regard. Now, other people say, well, what if I'm not going to work so much in my company? What if I work for someone else? Well, that by itself won't work. However, I can help develop a business plan and a model that will allow you to contract your services out. So let's go back to the consultant. Let's say you're an accounting type and you're going to open up a consulting type firm, but let's say you also want to do work for other people because as we know, you come here and business might be a little slow. You want to get some income from other people, other companies. Well, you can do that on an E2. You can actually work for another company. Instead of them paying you personally, they just pay your company. So you end up being like an independent contractor for that particular company, or 2 companies or 3 companies. Because I'm sure that you have either experienced or heard, if you come here and you go to apply for a job and they say, oh, you're wonderful, you're perfect, and then your next sentence is, can you petition me? 95% of the companies will go, oh, sorry, we don't do that. But if you come here on an E2 and it's properly worked into the business plan and the model and the E2 petition, that you're going to work for other companies as a contractor, as a subcontractor type person, then it's no problem. You will have the authorization to work, and you will not have to ask them to petition you. You will not have to wait. Even if they want to petition you, you won't have to wait for all that time to go through because you'll already have authorization under the E2. So that's how that works. Now, how about derivatives? How does derivative beneficiaries work with the E2? It happens to be one of the nicest types of benefits of a visa that there is. So let's say you come over on an E2. What about your spouse and children? What happens to them? Well, your spouse can get a work permit on the derivative E2 to work anywhere your spouse wants without restriction. Your kids, as long as they're single and unmarried, they can go to any school. They don't need to get an F1. They don't need to change status. The E2 itself will allow that. So it's a really nice visa as far as that goes. Now, how long does it take to get an E2? Well, unlike many other types of visas, you do not need prior USCIS authorization. You don't need to send it first through U.S. immigration, then get the approval, then send it to the U.S. Embassy or U.S. Consulate where you live. In fact, well, what my firm does is we prepare the whole E-2 packet, and you can send it directly to the U.S. consulate in your home country without having to wait at any time for USCIS. Then what they do is they review the packet, they review the documents. Normally they'll contact me and say, okay, now we are ready for the interview. They'll call you in, interview you, and voila, there it is. Okay, so the path to getting an actual E-2 is a bit faster than many other types of visas. Now, when you come to the U.S., generally you'll get an E-2 for a couple of years, okay? And you can then just renew it afterwards. So as long as you're running the business and doing what you should, you can continually renew it and renew it and renew it. There's no outside limit on it. There's no term upon which you are not eligible to renew any further. So, if you work your cards right here, you come here on an E-2, and then you find a different way to eventually get the green card, and while you're waiting for all those years, you work the company. Okay, and then E-2 allows you to come and go without any problem. Okay, unless you happen to come from some particular countries that only issue a one entry E-2, like for example Egypt is doing that these days, which is okay because it still allows you to get in the country, and then there's ways of dealing with that situation afterwards. Okay, now we've gone over the basics. We're just doing the crash course nutshell version of an E-2, but it is a great visa to come in on. The investment for investment purposes is relatively low, and of course you don't have to spend all of it on tables and chairs and equipment. In fact, a decent amount of it can go into the corporate bank account to show that you have enough capital to keep running, to keep the business running. And then you can set up a consultation with me. I'll let you know how we can help. I can offer various places to rent through property that I own, so that you'll have an office that you can actually rent and run your business out of. Of course, I'll help with the business plan. And the business plan, again, is like 30, 40, 50-page document that shows all the outlook of the business itself, and then the E-2 petition itself. So 3 different parts need to go forward with the E-2, but I will walk you through, once my firm is retained, exactly what needs to be done, how you need to go from getting the corporate structure to the corporate bank account to the articles to all kinds of other items that need to be done. But it's all set up very nicely. The web logon will allow you to enter all that information. So if you're thinking of an E-2 or investment type visa, set an appointment to have a consultation with me, and I'll be happy to see what we can do for you. Okay, more in the coming videos.